In one fell swoop, the United States Supreme Court knocked down one of just a teeny little handful of steps made by the federal government in recent years to address the deadly scourge of gun violence in America. The court opening the floodgates now to the spread of a tool that made possible the deadliest mass shooting in our country's history. In a 6-3 decision that splits on ideological lines, the nation's highest court eliminated a ban on bump stocks. Now, bump stock is an accessory that makes a deadly weapon, a semi-automatic rifle. You can imagine this, even deadlier. Bump stocks were banned by the Trump administration after a lone gunman perched on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort in Las Vegas, armed to the teeth with semi-automatic rifles, outfitted them with bump stocks, and then rained bullets down on a crowd of 22,000 people who were there to enjoy a concert. Amid panic and confusion, many people didn't even realize what was happening. He murdered 60 people and injured more than 500 more in a series of rapid-fire bursts of gunfire made possible by bump stocks. This was that scene.
They're not real bump stocks.
What is it?
I don't know.
What it is bump stock amplified semi-automatic rifles firing into a crowd of people. And today, the Supreme Court allowed for that kind of carnage to take place again. Writing for the majority, Justice Clarence Thomas said that the federal government overreached when it used a nearly 100-year-old law banning machine guns to ban bump stocks because, he writes, a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock does not meet the technical definition of a machine gun, which is banned. Or, as Justice Sotomayor put it, it does not meet the majority's tortured, contrived definition of a machine gun. In a scathing dissent that she read from the bench to underscore her exasperation and frustration with the decision, Justice Sotomayor says, quote, "Today, the court puts bump stocks back in civilian hands. To do so, it casts aside Congress's definition of a machine gun and seizes upon one that is inconsistent with the ordinary meaning of the statutory text and unsupported by context or purpose. When I see a bird that walks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, I call that bird a duck. A bump stock equipped semi-automatic rifle fires automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. Because I, like Congress, call that a machine gun, I respectfully dissent. Today's decision to reject that ordinary understanding will have deadly consequences. Those deadly consequences are where we start today with some of our favorite experts and friends. Senior editor for Slate, host of the Amicus podcast, Dahlia Lithwick, is here, plus former top prosecutor at DOJ and MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissman's back with us at the table. Author and of New York Times bestselling books Columbine and Parkland, Birth of a Movement. Dave Cullen is back with us, and the host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC, the president of the National Action Network, the Reverend Al Sharpton's here. Dave, I read, we reported earlier this week that the Newtown class of kids who were in first grade graduated this year. And just to think of how much of our adult lives, and for those high school graduates, their entire childhoods are now shaped by these searing national tragedies of mass shootings, and that we choose to continue to live like this makes this decision extraordinary.
It does. And, the reason the Parkland kids rose up so quickly and powerfully is because they were born to this. Well, they went to kindergarten. They were already having the drills. And they were so angry and so fed up. And they were waiting it to happen to their school. So when it happened, they were ready and they went for it. And, it's just astounding. I'm sure Andrew and some of the others can speak to this very well, and Dana. But, Dahlia, this is so historic because the first major gun legislation, the biggest we ever had, were the two in the 1930s, I believe in 33 and 38, where it was specifically in response to Al Capone and the gangster era, the Tommy gun and the machine guns, that they did this. So it was the first and most important thing Congress ever addressed was the machine gun. And nearly a century later, the 6 politicians on the Supreme Court repealed that act out of nowhere. And, you know, the great thing for them is, like, they don't have to get the president's signature. There's no veto. They can just do it by fiat, you know, so they're a dictator of 6 to pass whatever legislation they want. And this is just astounding.
And just so it isn't lost on anybody, so that people understand what they did today, I really do want to show people what a bump stock is. I want to try to illuminate what Justice Sotomayor wrote in her dissent. Watch this.
So watch here as my hand pulls forward on the barrel of the gun. This brings the trigger up to my stationary trigger finger. My finger never moves, but still connects with the trigger due to the forward motion of the gun. The gun then fires, and the recoil brings the gun back to my stationary finger over and over, causing the trigger to be pulled again and again, very quickly, until I run out of ammo. Accuracy is severely compromised, but accuracy isn't really the point of full auto. Here's the semi-auto firing rate one more time. My finger was pulling the trigger manually. And here it is again, with the currently fully legal bump stock installed on the AR-15.
It struck me in covering the Trump trial that the world is watching, and I think this is the thing that makes the world feel differently about tourism, feel differently about work visas, feel differently about student visas, feel differently about the mind of the people living in a country that think that that's necessary.
Right. When I do interviews after these horrible things, I do a lot of U.S. and then abroad, and they're completely different. Like the opening questions from UK, Australia, anywhere in the world, Africa, it always starts out with some version of like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Why haven't you done something about guns yet? And yeah, they're astounded and they can't believe this. And now we just took a huge step backwards, not just forwards. And by the way, watching that, I served in the U.S. infantry, and we had on our M16s, it had both a semi-automatic mode, and then you could flip this little switch, and it became a machine gun, an automatic machine gun. And that looks just like what we did with flipping that switch. I was so glad to hear Justice Sotomayor say that about walking like a duck, because that was my first response. And at first I thought, well, I'm not an expert in mechanics or, you know, guns. Like, maybe I'm wrong. And then I read that and I was kind of thinking like, well, sometimes it helps to be just a civilian. So you can look at it and say, like, this is obviously a machine gun. And from somebody who's fired a machine gun in the infantry, it's quite obvious. And I'm glad she said they're tortured logic, because they had to invent this ridiculous thing to say machine guns are okay now, or you know, a way to, you know, technology figured out a way to recreate machine guns. And they said, okay, it's fine to have machine guns.
Andrew Weissman, let me show you what Jamie Raskin said about what the Supreme Court is up to on this front.
The Supreme Court has been on a rampage with respect to the ability of states and localities to pass reasonable gun safety measures. And they turn the rhetoric of originalism on and off according to their ideological purposes. So, you know, nobody is saying that the flint stock musket is the only protected weapon, because that's what existed in the 18th century. The NRA has succeeded in poisoning reasonable public debate about this. 90% of Americans want to see a violent criminal background check and want to close the loopholes in the Brady legislation so that people can't get the firearms online or get firearms at a private gun show without going through a background check. And yet, you know, the Supreme Court is driving everything in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we cover the crisis at the Supreme Court in terms of the public's faith in it. It's sort of a tortured braid of ethics lapses and decisions that are so far out of the mainstream. The ban on bump stocks was a Trump administration policy.
So I think it's very hard to look at this and not just get increasingly cynical about the Supreme Court. I mean, I try very hard to be thinking about, well, is there some rational argument for the majority here? And it's very hard to see, because you sit there and say, okay, you have to concede that the Sotomayor dissent is at least, that it's a rational view that the executive branch could take of this law. In other words, like, let's assume the sort of best case, reasonable minds could differ. This could be viewed as fitting within the definition of a machine gun. And maybe some people would disagree. And that's where the court is, they're not in the legislature. They're not in the executive branch. And it really comes down to sort of who on God's green earth do they think they are? This was a decision that either Congress has made or that the White House has made, and it is a reasonable one. And it is impossible to see this other than through the lens of the Second Amendment, and because they want to see the Second Amendment in anything that would interfere with even the right to bear a machine gun, which, by the way, not in the Constitution, we are going to strike down. And that's where there's just such disrespect for the other branches of government.
Right.
And so it's just so hard to not view this through a political lens when it's just impossible to view what Justice Sotomayor wrote as being irrational. And the standard then is, so what deference is the court giving at all to either Congress or to the White House in making a reasonable restriction here on saying that, because everyone agrees machine guns could be banned. They're just trying to come up with this technicality that allows it to not be here. And it just isn't their role. And so I just think this is an example of Justice Roberts, with all due respect, who said he's here to call balls and strikes. I don't think so. That's not what was going on here.